Thank you, Federico. Clearly today you don't need to be an Albert Einstein to realize that we're in the midst of a terrible economic crisis. That crisis is having a severe impact on the advertising industry as well. As Mr. Einstein incredibly foretold many years ago, times of crisis are generally the best times to conduct a serious evaluation of how we do business. Those companies that are willing to change, to adapt to the change, those are the ones that will survive. Those that don't will likely be the footnotes in future marketing textbooks. We're also in the midst of one of the greatest revolutions in media and marketing ever to occur. It's truly transformational in nature. The way we did businesses a scant 5 years ago is and will be totally unlike what is going to be required in the future. Digital media, telephony, the internet all have exponentially changed the number of media alternatives consumers have available to them. They've changed the way in which audiences view the media and how they react to the advertising. It's truly unlike anything we've ever seen before. Here in Mexico, 15 years ago, everyone watched either Televisa or TV Azteca. They also had local radio, newspaper, magazines available to them as well. Everyone knew them, knew their products, and often their content. And as marketers, we got very comfortable in the ways in which we could use these media to support our marketing efforts. We got so comfortable, in fact, that much of today's media planning is likely still based upon many of those same old media paradigms. Now, clearly, I've been around a long time. I have a lot of experience. I saw the birth of media planning principles, most of which were developed in the 1960s and 1970s. In fact, I organized and helped teach the very first media planning course at Michigan State University in the 1970s. I wrote my dissertation on advertising response functions, an area that was totally unexplored at the time. So I know where many of our traditional concepts came from. I know their history, and unfortunately, I also know their weaknesses. Most of the media principles we still use today are based on achieving maximum reach and optimizing on a frequency of 3. Now, those optimizing concepts made a lot of sense in the 1960s. That's when most audiences were homogeneous and there were few alternative media. That's simply not the case today, nor is it going to be the case in the future. So the idea that maintaining continuity over affordable periods, which was relevant only a few years ago, doesn't make much sense today. Audiences are too diverse, alternative media forms are too common. Consumer attention spans and interests simply aren't what they used to be. So did the time-tested principles of yesterday work? In their time, certainly they did. Yes, billions of dollars were invested on those philosophies, and billions of dollars in returns probably resulted. Would they or could they work in today's marketplace? I just don't think so. In spite of the changes we see now and those on the horizon, 92% of today's TV investment in Mexico is still placed on these two old traditional networks. Sure, it's easy. It's a real no-brainer. Simply pick the best shows, buy at the right price. The real question, however, is that approach effective for you or your clients? Consumer media habits have changed. They've changed in all media forms. Today, 31% of the households in Mexico have access to cable or satellite television. This has had to have a dramatic impact on viewership. For example, 17% of all viewership today is to cable networks. Mexicans today also have access to a wealth of information on the worldwide internet. Best estimates say 33% of all Mexicans will access the internet today. So with only 6 keystrokes and a click of the mouse, in less than a second, consumers can find out anything they want to know about you, your brands, your products, and even your competitors. The challenge to media planners today is enormous. Simply trying to use the planning principles you already know should make you feel really uncomfortable. You know from your own experience the marketplace have changed. You've changed. The consumers have changed. The media forms have literally exploded. We've been tracking those changes for nearly 10 years. My latest book, Media Generations, illustrates some of those changes and the ones we expect in the future. Today, consumers have many more options, but more importantly, they have control over the system. Control over what reaches them, over what they access on their own, on how they use their time and resources, and most of all, how they are now using media in different ways. Simultaneous media consumption is one of those. That simply means consumers are multitasking, using multiple media forms at the same time. That's a real challenge to our traditional audience measurement systems. In short, we're moving from an intra-media decision model, that is one where the question was which channel or network program to select from a finite list, to an immediate approach which is based on intermedia comparisons. That simply means what combinations of media forms out of the vast number of alternatives should we use to reach these multitasking consumers. That's how consumers are making media decisions today, and that's what we should be doing as well. Today, consumers simply can't pay attention to your advertising messages, not even if they wanted to. No one can take in, process, and store the 4,000 or more advertising messages they are normally exposed to every day. The real issue in media planning is not finding ways to send out more messages. It's about finding the media forms consumers prefer. We need to think about the ones they use, the ones they favor, and then being there when they want to hear from us, not just when we want to talk. In short, the media planning model is being turned upside down. We're moving from distribution to consumption, from efficiency to effectiveness. In the past year, I've visited and lectured in more than 20 countries. And the issue is the same everywhere. To succeed in today's marketing environment, 4 things are really required. Number 1, we have to promote to the right consumer, not just to everyone. The second, use the media with which consumers have a relationship. That is, the ones in which they're involved and which they choose time after time. Ratings don't measure relationships. They measure only opportunities to see, or that is, chances to see. The real issues are affinity and engagement. Those are the measures we'll need to give greater attention to in the planning process. The third major factor, use multi-platform communication. Today's consumer is polychronic. That is, they multitask. They use several media simultaneously. You need to do the same thing with your marketing programs to be effective. And the fourth and final point, build relationships, not just reach. People buy from people they like. Times have changed, and you need to change too if you want to continue succeeding in the marketplace of today and tomorrow.